to Piecing It Together, the podcast where we take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what inspired it. I'm your host, Gina, and today we're celebrating the 100th episode of Piecing It Together. That's right, the 100th episode. If you've just stumbled upon Piecing It Together for the first time, welcome. This is unlike any episode of the show because today we're taking a look not at a new movie, but instead at the show's regular host, David Rosen. Yes, that's right. I'm not the regular host of Piecing It Together. I'm the fiancé of the host of Piecing It Together, and I thought it'd be fun to turn the focus on to Dave. Because after 99 episodes, listeners probably want to know who really is the guy behind Piecing It Together. What got him into podcasting? Why did he create this amazing show that's now on its 100th episode? What was he doing before Piecing It Together? What does he do now when he's not recording Piecing It Together? All in all, let's dissect the puzzle pieces of Dave. Hell, let's dissect the puzzle pieces of Dave from over the past decade. Sound good, Dave?
Sounds great to me, Bear.
Congratulations on your 100th episode, by the way.
Thank you so much. I'm glad we're going to be doing this. This is going to be a lot of fun. And, I had episodes in the works on Terminator and Jojo Rabbit, and I didn't think any of those should be episode 100. I think this is a much better idea.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to take a look at the past decade. Let's start with, when did you start listening to podcasts?
I want to say it was about 7 years ago or so. It was this decade. I was originally... We were in the middle of one of our little Curb Your Enthusiasm marathons, and I was kind of becoming obsessed with Richard Lewis all over again.
Oh, I love him.
He's the best. And I was just Googling his name just for the hell of it, and he had just that week happened to be on What the Fuck with Mark Maron. And so I listened to that interview, and I think I probably listened to like 30 or 40 back episodes of What the Fuck after that. And I couldn't stop listening to it.
Oh my God, I remember you've been listening to that show forever.
Yeah, I was absolutely hooked, and I don't listen to as much anymore, but I still listen to him a bunch here and there, and but I just went from that onto other shows along the way.
Yeah, I remember we actually went and saw Mark Maron at a stand-up special here in Vegas.
That was probably like a year later or something like that, a year or two later, because that was pretty early on when I had first, and I knew him as a stand-up, but I think it was around, 70, 80 episodes into the podcast already before I ever found out about it.
That's awesome. And what were some of the other podcasts that you would listen to?
Other than that, it was mostly movie podcasts. I love Doug Loves Movies.
We actually went and saw that one. I remember downtown.
Yeah, we went to a live show of that. Also, How Did This Get Made, which I wish would do a live show here in town.
Oh my God!
You know how much I love that one.
I love them too, even though I don't listen to it. They're amazing.
Those guys are so funny.
Oh my God.
Those were the big three that I was listening to at first, and I've been kind of spreading out, listening to more independent podcasts, especially some of the ones that are people whose shows I guest on and they guest on my show, but then also just trying all kinds of other podcasts as well. There's so much out there.
And do you still listen to those? Well, you said you don't really listen to the Mark Maron What the Fuck podcast very much.
Yeah, now I find myself so damn busy because a lot of the times that first it was podcasts took over for music where I wouldn't have as much time to listen to music, and now it's my own podcast take over for listening to other people's podcasts because a lot of the times I'm going back and just double checking if, today's episode of Piecing It Together or Awesome Movie Year or whatever sounds good. And next thing I know, I'm at work and it's time to shut it off and I don't get to listen to something else.
Isn't that life?
Sure is. Yeah.
Okay, so what kept you coming back to those podcasts over and over again, though? Like when you first started listening to podcasts, what just kept you interested in them?
Well, I think all of them are funny, which that definitely is a big thing for me. But Mark Maron does amazing interviews. I love the kind of conversations he has with people. And then the other two just being, comedy and movies put together. And I don't really consider, anything that I do. I mean, Bird Road kind of was comedy, but, I don't know, piecing it together. It's funny at times, but it's not a comedy podcast like those are. But still, I mean, they do find fresh, fun ways to talk about movies. And that's definitely something I brought to when I was creating Piecing It Together.
And Bird Road's one of your other podcasts.
Yeah, Bird Road is the first podcast that I did with my best friend Q, and that is the show that kicked off this whole All Points West podcast network that we've got going on. And it's on a little bit of a hiatus at the moment, but it may
I can't
come
blame
back.
you. I can't blame you. Politics, I'm sorry, but everybody gets burned out on that.
It's just so depressing.
Yeah,
and
it is.
I mean, we're going to do other stuff together. We've got some things that we're not ready to necessarily talk about yet, but I mean, we're going to do things, whether it's Bird Road or something else. Me and Q are going to do plenty of things. And of course, he'll be on piecing it together again soon. But yeah, Bird Road's on a slight hiatus, but I think it'll be back at some point.
Well, I certainly hope so, because I do love it. And I know I don't listen to it enough. I kind of suck about listening to your podcast. I will admit it. Well, actually, I hear you recording them live a lot of the times, because my office is right upstairs above your
You at least
studio.
get my part of the conversation.
Yeah, and then when you have guests here, I get to hear that. But yeah, you and Q's Bird Road, obviously, I don't hear that live unless you guys are doing a live show, which you did once here in Las Vegas, and then you did another one in Miami.
That was fun. I actually forgot to write down the live shows when I was making some notes for this whole thing. That's that was fun.
They were really cool. I got to photograph the one here in Vegas, and it was a lot of fun. There were a lot of our political friends that participated in it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It was fun. So anyway, I wanted to ask you, what inspired you to create Piecing It Together in the first place?
So my first answer that I always give for this question whenever someone asks me about this is that we had Bird Road, and I was always just trying to force the conversation into movies. I was even if there was something happening with Trump or something like that week, I was always like, oh yeah, but this movie came out and let's talk about that, or let's list our 10 favorite action movies or some kind of thing. And so finally I was just like, maybe I should just start my own damn show. And I didn't want it to just be a movie review show. There's already literally thousands of them out there. I wanted to do something a little bit different. And I do find a lot of the times when talking about movies, especially with my buddy Chad Clinton Freeman, who's on the show a lot, I would talk about a movie in terms of it's this meets this meets this. We would talk about the movies that we would compare it to, movies that we think it had some inspiration from. Maybe we didn't always put it in those terms exactly, but that was basically what we were talking about. And that kind of came together into the theme for the show. I have notes in a Google Doc somewhere of different ideas for what my movie show would be. And it was almost always, even when it didn't necessarily have the puzzle theme, it was always something that had to do with putting together inspirations.
Yeah, that's so cool. I think, were we stoned when you came up with that idea?
Might have been. That's possible.
And when did you start the show? Was it a year ago, I think?
A year and a half, over a year and a half.
Okay.
Now. Yeah.
And then when did you start when did you and Q start Bird Road?
Bird Road is like a solid 2 years. I lost track of that one.
So 2017.
Yeah, 2017, and then
it would have had to have been, because I remember that was when you guys had the live show. It was like
beginning of 2018.
No, it was
right?
beginning of 2018. Yes.
And we were only like 4 months in at that point or something like that. So yeah.
And so then
Piecing It Together came soon after.
Yeah. Really cool. I know I love how passionate you are about your show. You've taken something that you absolutely love, which is movies. That's your side chick, I'd say.
Yep.
I'm a little bit jealous, I'll have to admit.
Some girl's fiance is out at the bar drinking and stuff, and your fiance is at the movies.
Yeah. She's not exactly a cheap date, though.
That's true.
Let's hope that the show gets big enough to where you can start getting into those press screenings.
I know. I need to get into more of those, as many as possible.
Hello, if you're out there and you have any connections, please help Dave out. Hello.
Give me more movies, please.
So that way we can save money for our travels.
There you go.
Okay, so I guess my next question for you would be, what was your biggest challenge with starting a new podcast?
The biggest thing was, I guess, fighting perfectionism, like just getting in and doing it, you know? I not worrying that people are going to say, what a stupid idea, Dave, not worrying that people are going to, just not listen, and that it would just be like a complete waste of time, and it's not like I've got millions of people listening, but I think the people who have listened really do seem to enjoy it, and I most of all have fun doing it. And so
Yeah.
I'm glad that any doubts I might have had, I didn't listen to, and I just went right in and
Yeah.
started making this thing.
Now, I know there's been a few times where you've been really frustrated as a podcast producer,
Sure.
host, et cetera, et
All of the
cetera.
above.
What has been like one of the most like pulled my hair out of my fucking head like moments of being involved with this stuff? Like,
The biggest thing, and this was for Bird Road, this is for piecing it together, doing remote recordings.
Yeah.
Only sometimes do I have people here over at the house to record in this studio, and I love doing it in person. I would be perfectly happy if it was never in person, if it was always remote. I love the idea of being able to talk to all kinds of great people from all over the world and talk to them about movies, and have them on my podcast. But connecting to people over the internet is the most inexact thing imaginable. It's just, you would think it's 2019 right now. It's about to be 2020 in a couple of months. And it's still just this crapshoot of whether or not it's going to work once you hit record.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy. The best bet is if I'm dealing with someone who's computer literate and can record their own side, then we don't really have so many issues. But
Mhm.
if you get somebody who's interesting and they're not necessarily the biggest computer geek in the world, they might not know how to do that. And it's so hard. But,
Yeah.
I've gotten around it though. And yes, I've torn my hair out sometimes,
Uh-huh.
but I deal with it and I make it work.
So one of the things that's really interesting about your show is that you have a rotating cast of co-hosts. What made you want to do that, first of all?
Part of it was that I couldn't decide who I'd want to be my co-host. I didn't,
Yeah.
I didn't want a specific person. Like I mentioned Chad earlier, I knew Chad was going to be a part of this show, but I love Chad, but I didn't want to make the Dave and Chad show for the next, 5 years or 10 years, however long I do this thing. I knew I always wanted to, have, different people on. And I also knew that a big part of keeping it interesting would be if I could have other movie podcasters on, because who knows movies better than people who talk about movies all day, and so
Yeah.
I wanted to definitely keep it open for all kinds of people. And it's crazy, I was looking at it earlier today. I've had over 30 people on the show already.
That's pretty freaking amazing.
Yeah, and of those 30, only like 5 or 6 of them are like people who are like my regular friends.
Uh-huh.
A
Yeah.
lot of them are people from other podcasts, people who are movie critics,
Yeah.
filmmakers, all kinds of stuff like that. It's great.
It's cool to see so many people that are passionate about movies.
Yeah.
Life is pretty depressing these days.
It is.
So it's pretty cool. I mean, and then of course you've got Netflix now. So
Yeah,
less people are
Hollywood's
gonna,
depressing too. So,
Yeah.
but there's plenty of depressing. But
Yeah.
we like to keep it fun on the show.
less people are going to the movies now,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, which upsets me. But
Yeah, yeah. But some of your guests or some of your friends and followers in your what is it called?
Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces.
Your Facebook group.
Yes.
You have a closed Facebook group.
Which I guess I'll just say really quick. The reason that is the name of the group is I didn't want it to be Piecing It Together group, because people were getting confused and they wanted to post in the group, but they were posting on the page. They were posting on the page. They wanted to post in the group, back and forth. And so I was like, all right, this group needs its own name. And so I thought that was a fun name. And so...
Tell us a little more though about the group. Like, why did you? I know you have a Facebook page, a Piecing It Together Facebook page, but why did you even start like a group?
Yeah, well, it's actually been one of the greatest things for growth of this podcast and keeping it going. And I really honestly thought it was going to be like 10 people and that was going to be it and no more people. We're almost to 200 members in there. And
Shit.
yeah, and I keep it closed. Like not just anybody can join. Like people have to click, join group, and I have to approve them based on the questions. It's not a public group. And the fact that it's gotten as big as it is kind of crazy. And I mean, I know 200 isn't the biggest thing in the world, but it's much bigger than I expected, and it's active, and people are in there posting and commenting about movies and all their thoughts on movies without me being a part of the conversation a lot of the times. And that's just awesome. And I'm so grateful for that group, how active it's been. And it's just a part of the whole social media thing. Like, I'd never found Twitter to be particularly useful with my music and stuff, but Twitter has been great for the podcast. Facebook just as a page is what I used to do for my music, and the page for piecing it together has just been garbage. But
that's Facebook. Facebook
that's
pages
Facebook for
suck.
you.
Let me tell
It's
you,
a total crapshoot.
Yeah.
But the group has been awesome, and I'm just so happy it's been awesome.
What are some of the topics that you guys discuss in there?
I mean, everything. I always try to bring the conversation over to whatever movie, the episode is going to be on that week. Also, people will post, all the new movie trailers. We end up talking about that. People bring in different movie memes and stuff, funny movie memes, and sometimes it gets into little, arguments and scuffles, as movie nerds are known to do. But luckily, it hasn't been too bad.
What do you think makes a podcast successful?
I think there's a lot of things that go into it. I think consistency is number one. I think that's the most important thing. With piecing it together, for example, we have an episode every Friday, sometimes more than every Friday. Sometimes we'll have 2 episodes in a week. Sometimes even we've had 3 a couple of times here and there. But consistency is super important, not only in how often it comes out, but that the quality is always good and that it's an interesting conversation. Everything consistency related is really important. And then just, actually caring about the thing that you're talking about, I think is important, because I mean, if I was to just randomly say, you know what, I'm going to make the best cooking podcast out there, and I don't actually love cooking, it's like it would be the most boring drag in the world for me to make, and that would come through, I think, on the other side for people listening. And so you really, like, I see people in like these podcast support groups, and they're like, "Hey, everyone, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. Anyone have a good idea of what it should be about?" And I'm like, "Oh, that is not going to work out at all. Like, you need to know what you want to talk about before you start the podcast."
Yeah. And speaking of that, you actually started to produce other podcasts now.
Yeah, absolutely, which is really cool and not something I expected. I didn't expect to do podcasts, a decade ago. It's certainly a year ago I didn't expect to be producing podcasts. But I'm producing Awesome Movie Year with Josh Bell and Jason Harris, who are Las Vegas locals. Josh Bell is a film critic whose work I had read for years and years before this, and then he came and joined me on a couple Piecing It Together episodes. And Jason Harris is a comedian and filmmaker, and also a writer, and they do the show together. It's a deep dive into a different year every year in different set categories, and it's a really fun show. And I also have a mic in front of me while we're recording, so if I want to chime in here and there, I pop up on the show. But then also starting in January is All Rice No Beans, which is a restaurant podcast with Stephanie Barajas from Lindo, Michoacan. And that is going to be a totally different thing, totally outside my wheelhouse, but it's not my podcast. Like I was just saying, it's got to be something it's your thing. This is Stephanie's thing, 100%, and I think she's going to do an awesome job with it. We've already recorded some bits and one interview, but we're recording, actually, as this goes up, we're recording this week, and we're recording 4 more interviews for it, and then I'm going to be able to really get started on it, and we're aiming for the first week of January to start putting these things up.
That is so exciting. I mean, gosh, who would have thought that you would be doing this, 10 years ago? In fact, look at where you've been. Tell us, where have you been? Like, what's your last 10 years looked like? What?
Like before podcasting and everything?
Yeah, like tell us about the past decade.
Well, my main thing was music all through the remainder of the decade. I mean, I started with music like 15 years ago, but honestly, as I've been looking back, I mean, it is the end of the decade, and as you do, you look back and look at your, accomplishments for the decade and stuff like that. I mean, I've realized that really this decade was the one where I really started to professionally make music. I mean, I really started making music for films, putting albums out, and just composing music for real. And it's been an awesome decade. I mean, there's been a lot of great projects along the way, I'm sure we'll talk about here in a minute, but just overall, I mean, it really has been, it's amazing looking back at all the stuff I've done.
And you created a few albums.
Yeah, those have kind of been like, I don't know, in a way, like the connecting piece of all of it, because my first album, Echoes in the Dark, came out in 2013. And I at that point, all I'd put out was the comedy rap stuff, and also some rappers that I produced.
Which
and
you really don't want to promote nowadays.
No, nobody needs to know about
he
that.
mentioned it, let me tell you.
Erase. Although it is still
You're
out
canceled.
there. And I was listening to it today on the way home from work, and I was loving it. So, but it's terrible. Nobody should ever look up that stuff. But no, none of that was like what I consider music that represents me and what, my art, and then finally I was ready to put out this album, Echoes in the Dark, and I'm still so proud of it. And, it could have been 10 years before the next one, but I've just crazily been pumping these albums out. I put out 4 main albums this year. That's Echoes in the Dark, An Unseen Sky, Head Like Fire, and A Different Kind of Dream. And in between each of those, I put out these free bonus albums, which anybody who had bought the previous album would get for free as a free download. And those had B-sides and remixes that other artists did of my own music. Those were called Further Into the Dark, Another Sky, Like Ashes. Those are the 3 bonus albums. And so, yeah, seven albums of music plus some singles, and that's not even getting into the movies and stuff that I worked on. But I mean, that's so much output for 10 years.
It is, but look at you. I mean, you're on your 100th episode of podcast.
Yeah, right.
So like, it's kind of believable that you would pump out a bunch of albums like that.
It's crazy. And, one of the most like fun and exciting parts of this career and of putting out these albums was collaborating with people on music videos to promote the albums, since I don't do shows or anything like that, and I can't perform to promote the albums. So instead, my way of doing that was to make music videos and submit them to film festivals, and then show up to the screenings, and then that way I could talk to people about my music and stuff like that, and see it in a room with people, And the music videos have been something I would have never expected, kind of like with podcasts. I would have never expected that's something I'd be doing with my work. Yeah. But wow, I've been so lucky to get to do some really cool stuff. Yeah. My first video, which I made myself out of stock footage and public domain footage, it was called Lights in the Sky. And on its first screening, it won an award at that Vegas Indie Meet. And so that I caught the bug then. And
that was so cool. I couldn't believe, that's amazing that you found all that footage on the public domain.
Yeah, it was, I got the idea because of a film that screened at Polygrind called President Wolfman. And it was made of public domain footage.
I love the name.
Yeah, it was hilarious. And then I actually dressed as President Wolfman for one of the director's events. But yeah, no, and so it just came together, and it just became a really cool thing. And I've done 3 videos like that now, with like public domain and stock footage, and just editing them and doing effects. But then also collaborating with filmmakers, our mutual friend Doug Farah, who did my If Only Tonight I Could Sleep music video. That was my first like big produced video with a cast and stuff.
That was so awesome.
Oh, it was
Doug's
so
very
cool.
talented. You guys you guys collaborate really well together.
Yeah. We worked on a lot of stuff together. And then of course, I mean the other 2 like that are really, I mean, I love all of them, and I apologize that I'm not going to talk about every single one of them, but the other 2 that I want to mention real quick as we're talking about this, Back Into the Dark, from visual artist B. Landers, which,
oh man,
that one, I had nothing to do with the concept. I just sent her the music, and she went to town on it. It is the coolest thing ever.
It's stop motion animation, right?
Yeah, total stop motion animation, and I mean, it kind of reminds me of like a Tool music video.
Yes,
it's. I mean, I can't believe how cool that thing is.
Yeah.
And then the other one, of course, is Artificial, which was directed by Ben Yonker, and based off of a script that I wrote, or a story I wrote, I guess, and it went on to get into, I think at the total maybe 14 film festivals or something, and won like 4 or 5 awards, and nominated for a few others. I mean, that thing really did so well, and it's just such a awesome little mini film. It's just, I love that thing so much.
Yeah. And the actual star of that video is living in your music studio.
Yeah, he scares me every time I walk by that room.
You've got to watch the video to know what he's talking about.
Yes, absolutely. You can find all those videos on my YouTube channel, by the way.
And then there was a really cool one, another one that was like Tool-esque, which was, it was an animated one.
Oh, Butterfly.
Yes.
Butterfly was amazing too, from Tobias Steiner. Incredible video. One of my most successful videos. It's just a really cool computer animated video, and it's just, that one also kind of blows my mind that I got to have that video be a part of my music is just so cool. And I guess I wasn't even going to talk about this, but just briefly before we move on to whatever the next thing you want to talk about, the virtual reality videos that I did over this decade. I didn't even think about that, but I collaborated twice with Tyson Bolcom on two just incredible virtual reality music videos. One of them, Palindrome 360, was named one of the best VR music videos of 2018 by Forbes magazine.
That's amazing.
And then the one we did before that, Constellations 360, that one's had over 100,000 plays on YouTube, and it was like, it's crazy how much that video, I think combining all the different sites out there, over 300,000 total, but I mean, it's absolutely crazy how many people saw that video, thanks in part to Google finding it and helping to promote it, which is just crazy, it's so wild.
And you actually worked on a virtual reality project with another
producer, with
right?
With a company called Elemental Spark. It's called An Unseen Sky. It was for the title track of the album An Unseen Sky. And that, which this is freaking insane, but was the first ever virtual reality music video. A week later,
freaking cool.
a week later, after we put that out, Bjork came out with one. Whoa. And most people would, of course, think she's the first. But
you did it first.
We were first, and that was also another amazing project.
Cool. What with the virtual reality videos? Like how did that allow people to experience music in a different way than before? Your music, specifically.
It really kind of goes back to what I was saying about how music videos are a way for me to get out in front of an audience with my music, because I can't do shows, I can't perform the music. With virtual reality, it's even better because I would do these events throughout the last like 6-7 years where I'd like have a table at some kind of event or something, and I'd be sitting there with my virtual reality headset on and ready to put people in it, and they get in it and they get to experience my music in full surround and with these insane visuals. And then afterwards we could talk about it for a few minutes while the next person's going. And it really opened up a communication with people listening to my music. And I'll say, that's one thing about the podcast is I am constantly talking to people about the movies that we're talking about on the podcast, about the podcast itself. It's awesome. There's a constant communication, whether it's in our group or it's on Twitter or it's on person, whatever. With music, nobody wants to fucking talk about music. Like, it's seriously, like, it's so hard unless you're at a show to talk about music. And doing those events was a way to talk about my music with people. And so it really opened that communication with people. And I got to find out that, there are people that like this kind of music. Because, I mean, let's be real, the music I make, I like to describe it as like dark electronica, and that's not the biggest genre in the world. Not everybody is banging down the door for some new dark electronica. And even though I love what I make, and there are a lot of people out there who do really, really enjoy it, it's not something that is going to have the biggest, widest net of a fan base. And so when I get to talk to people who are into that stuff and like, oh man, I love this kind of music, it's great.
Yeah. But I think you need to give yourself more credit. You do have you're more versatile than you think. I mean, well, look at your new project, your newest music project.
Are we talking about the Pup Pups?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, the Pup Pups is another thing. technically, I started it last decade, and then it took me an entire decade to finally get back to it and start getting it finished. I think I started it maybe in 2008 or something like that, and then it just sat there, and I didn't touch it at all, except for every once in a while I'd write like a line of lyrics in a notepad or something. But I didn't touch it at all until last year. I finally got back to it. And now it's like 90% done. I just need to put the finishing touches on it and it'll be ready to be released. It was going to be this year, but it'll be next year. Yeah, the Pup Pups is definitely a departure for me of style. I mean, obviously I did a lot of funny rap stuff, but it is funny, it's sweet, it's rocking, it's all guitar based, and yeah, it's fun. I can't wait to put it out.
Speaking of which, we do have a special announcement from one of our sponsors.
We do. Let's play that clip.
My favorite toy's that little green tennis ball. I love it when you throw it and it bounces on down the hall. But tell me, mommy, can you really even blame me? It's clear to see that I am just a little baby. I'm sorry, daddy, I really didn't mean to offend. But would you give me back that toy again? Would you give me back that toy again? Give me back that toy again.
All right, that is adorable.
Dad loves that song.
He sure does. Speaking of which, Dada is who? Who's Dada?
Dad's our little boy Harvey, and we love him very, very much. He's a good boy.
He's got a lot of nicknames, doesn't he?
He does. Dada, Mr. Man, Dogman. Yeah, lots of nicknames.
And he is one of 4, well, actually now 3 pets that we have in our home.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Over the years, we've lost 2 pets this year or this decade. This year we lost our Sadie pup, who was just the most amazing dog, and she is the pup of the pups.
She sure is.
She's a Sadie pup, and yeah, we lost her this year, and it's one of the hardest things I've ever had to go through. And it's definitely part of the reason why the album isn't coming out this year, because I just have not had any kind of time to really get back to it, But we love our animals so much. We aside from Harvey, we've got Lily Bear, the orange tabby, and we've got Trudy, who is the newest addition to the family. We just got her 2 years ago, just the other day, right?
Yep. She's a calaby.
She is a calaby.
A calico tabby.
She's
it's
a little
a calico
shit
that has the tabby markings on her. She's really, really cute.
She is.
Why don't you tell everyone why you were so busy this year that you weren't able to
Yeah, well, as part of the whole, the reason we lost Sadie is because of kidney failure, and we spent about 5 months keeping her going, and not just keeping her going, but I mean, she came from a place of where overnight we thought we were going to lose her, and the vet said, there's treatment that can be done, and her quality of life is going to be good as long as you guys do it, and we can't promise how long it's going to be, but it's something we recommend you try. And so we had to do at-home IV fluid treatments as well as forced feedings because she wouldn't eat. And that took literal hours of my day every day for 5 months that we kept her going. And it wasn't until those last few days that she really got bad again. She was progressively getting better, and then all of a sudden it was just they gave out, and there was no more, and it was time.
And looking at the last decade, well, before 10 years ago, when did you get Sadie? How long ago was it?
I got Sadie, I guess 2006, probably.
Yeah, okay. So 2006, you got Sadie, and then a year later, we entered a relationship together.
Yes.
And then we got Harvey in 2009.
Okay.
But he was. Wait, no, I'm sorry. 2008. January of 2008, and then December of 2007, he was born though.
Yes.
And then, so you've had a really busy life.
Yeah. Well,
with your girlfriend and your animals.
Yes. Yeah. We stay busy. We sure do.
And in addition to that, what's your day job?
Well, I work at my family's record store, Wax Trax Records. Listeners of the show have heard my parents on here a couple of times. They were on during the Rocket Man special episode, and then also we had them on again for I think it was Hobbs and Shaw, and I think we'll have them on again sometime because it's always a lot of fun when they're on. And yeah, I mean, not much changed this decade at Wax Trax. I mean, the big thing, of course, was Elton John coming into Wax Trax. That was within this decade, and he's been in a lot, and it's very surreal and cool and kind of wild that he's become a big customer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so awesome. And your dad is a little bit of a legend, isn't he?
In a way, yes, absolutely. He drives me insane, but yes. And yeah, people love. I mean, we do a Facebook page for Wax Trax, which people should really follow. Wax Trax Records, and I post little quotes from him and stuff. Some of the ridiculous things he says, and I've considered doing a podcast with him at some point. I mean, we'll see if that ever happens. But yeah, he absolutely is a character. So is my mom. They both are.
Oh my God, your mom's amazing. Anyone who meets Sunny Rosen loves her.
Oh yeah.
She would like to let everyone know, I'm sure, that she can't add more Facebook friends.
Yes, that's right. She always says that. Yeah.
But yeah, she's the best. And your dad actually had a radio show, right?
Yeah, he had the Street Harmony Review, which I guess I produced. I don't really think of that when it comes to podcasts, but in a way, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, I was recording him, I was editing the show, and sending the file out to go where it went, and so yeah, in a way, I guess I was already producing a show at that time.
Yeah, so it's kind of in your blood.
Yeah, I guess so. And who knows? I mean, we'd have to figure out about copyright law and stuff, but we've talked about taking, because I have all of the episodes, which is like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years worth of them. We've talked about putting them up online somehow as like some form of looking back podcast kind of thing.
Really cool. So, your life is very, very busy. I know I keep you busy.
Yes, you do, little bear.
And how do I keep you busy? What is one of the ways that I keep you busy?
Well, amongst other things, you are a professional photographer.
Yes, I am.
And I am your professional assistant when it comes to photo shoots. And yeah, I heard that you have some really great specials going on right now.
I actually do. I do for the holidays. Let's listen to what those are. Hey, Las Vegas. There's no time like the present to give the gift of memories you'll treasure forever. Gina Mizzoni Photography is offering not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 holiday specials. Whether you're looking for something short and sweet like a mini shoot, savings on a regular full photography session, discounted prints to deck your walls, or gift certificates to give someone else or save for future use, we've got you covered. Check out our holiday specials at www.ginamizzoni.com. Again, that's www.ginamizzoni.com. Yeah, so those are my holiday specials.
Book now and get those special discount rates. And you get me as a assistant. Yeah. I show up at the shoot. So.
All right. So speaking of the holiday season, that's a good time to see movies, actually, right?
That's right. Lots of stuff coming out.
Awesome. And that's like what, Oscar season?
Yeah. I mean, I think it just started technically. I mean, and there is so many things coming out over the rest of the year. I mean, there's that Mr. Rogers movie coming out, which I'm sure is going to be great. Of course, there's things like Waves and Uncut Gems from A24, which everybody knows I love them so much. And there's just lots of things coming. I'm very excited. As we're recording this today, this weekend, I'm planning on seeing Martin Scorsese's The Irishman, which thankfully is opening here in Las Vegas. Netflix, their whole distribution thing, I don't want to get into that right now, but we luckily are getting it. And I'll also be seeing Ford v Ferrari this weekend, so we'll see if we end up doing episodes on those.
Well, isn't Martin Scorsese vehemently against the whole Netflix thing?
Well, he's against a lot of things, but he went and let Netflix produce the movie. So it is a Netflix movie. So that's the very, very strange thing about that whole situation. The thing is none of the other studios wanted to give him the amount of money necessary in order to make a movie with the effects he needed in order to pull it off. And so he ended up getting the money from Netflix, thinking that, yeah, I know it's Netflix, but they're still going to put this thing in theaters. They have to. I'm Martin fucking Scorsese, right? I mean, I don't know if he really said that, but this thing stars Robert De Niro and Al Pacino and Joe Pesci together for the first time in fucking 20, 30 years, whatever. They have to put this in theaters. And no, they're Netflix. They don't want people going to the theaters to see these movies. And yeah, they were maybe going to do like 50 theaters. Now they've expanded a little bit more. I mean, Vegas wasn't on the initial list, but now we are getting it. But yeah, Netflix doesn't want people seeing movies in theaters.
Yeah.
But I digress. I don't want to get too much into that.
Well, I can understand why that'd be frustrating for you as a passionate moviegoer, but also as a film composer.
Yeah. I mean, and we could talk about some of the stuff I've worked on, but just to speak to that point, when I compose music for film, I want to see that and hear it in a movie theater. I mean, and I can't imagine that most people who work on film aren't the same way.
Yeah. Tell us about some of the projects you've worked on film-wise.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I said, with the albums, that kind of that was like a connect the dots situation. Like through my music composing career, is like I would work on films, work on an album, work on films, work on an album, just But films has always been like my main career path, my main goal, and I've done a lot of it over this decade. I mean, really, if you look at like my IMDb profile and all the projects that I've worked on, which most of them are listed there, 90% of them are from this decade. So this really was the decade of me working on stuff.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and I mean, I so many, just such a wide, varied list of things. I mean, some of the biggest ones. I mean, there was, of course, from the Mahal brothers, Bus Party to Hell and The Art of the Dead, which are both really fun. I mean, total like B-movie style horror, ridiculous fun stuff. And I mean, they're great, and it's always so much fun to work with them. And I got to make some like really cool music for their projects. Also, Last Day of School, another one with them. But then also a lot of short films that I got to work on. Some really cool stuff. There's this one called Croak from a director named Matt Barrett. That was all over the place. That thing got like, I don't know, 40 film festivals or something. It's crazy. And it features like a monster, and it was so much fun to work on. I always wanted to work on something with a monster. Some other ones that I worked on over this last decade, The Hoarder with David Mykor, who I met my friend Ben Yonker through. I love that movie, The Hoarder. I think it's so good, and one of the best things I've done music for. Also, I worked on a lot of 48-hour film project films, which were always a lot of fun, and those were just a blast to work on. Also, I mentioned Doug Farah earlier, who did that If Only Tonight I Could Sleep video. I think me and him might have done like 5 or 6 short films over the last decade. We worked on a lot of stuff, plus some things like where his friends would be working on things and he'd maybe not be directing but be a DP or something like that. And I worked on just a ton of stuff with Doug over these years. So we really worked on a lot of stuff together. But yeah, I've worked on a lot of films over this decade. And then on top of that, also getting music placed on TV through various music libraries, which I think if there's one regret over this decade, it's that I didn't focus more on that. I know you've heard me complain about that plenty of times, that I don't focus my energy on that as much as I should be. That's where the money is, and I ignore it to go work on fun films. But I don't regret any of the fun films I worked on. They're all awesome. I just wish I'd squeezed a little more time out of working on music for libraries.
Definitely. But you know what? Like, we all get busy, and
everyone
just
has
like,
that.
Yeah. So, do you have a favorite project that you've worked on though? Like film-wise?
That's a good question. I do really love that Croak short film. It was just so much fun.
That is a very, very fun one.
It's got great gore to it, and the giant frog creatures are hilarious.
Don't give it away.
Yeah, I know. I shouldn't give it away, huh? That's a good one.
Did Sadie bark at the screen? remember?
I think she probably did. I don't remember. Damn, I wonder if she did and I filmed it. I probably have it. I'm gonna have to one of these days go through all the videos I have of her.
That was one of the best, like one of the cutest things about her. She had so
Yeah.
many amazing
She loved
traits.
TV and movies, and she would bark at everything. Every anything that wasn't a human being, she'd bark at.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, I loved that Bus Party to Hell. It's just so much fun. There was a feature I did. I mean, this was actually one of the few things I did before the decade, but since you're asking about my favorite projects, it's called I Did, from a director, Chase Caldwell, and that was a really great project, just a really good, solid drama, which a lot of the stuff I've worked on has been horror or thriller or just like
Yeah.
kind of B-movie kind of things, and they're a blast to work on, but that was like a really good movie, I thought, and so it was great to work on it.
And what's that one about?
That is about a marriage falling apart.
Oh no.
Yeah, my favorite kind of thing. And of course, I love you, my fiance.
I love you too. And I hope that, well, I know we'll never say I did.
No, we will not.
It's I do.
That's right. But maybe we'll watch the movie again one of these days.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of which, what are you looking forward to in the next year after this decade?
Well, looking forward to the future, of course.
Or I guess it would be the last year of the decade,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, I guess depends on how you look at it. But, well, first and foremost, of course, us getting married, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's happening next year.
It's kind of
and
crazy. How long have we been together?
We've been together 13 years.
It will be 13
It will be
years.
13 years
Yeah.
when we get married
Yeah.
next year. For anyone listening, you can tweet at us to try to guess what took me so long, but I'm just joking.
Please tweet at us a really good hashtag for our wedding.
Oh
That
yeah,
would be
that's a good
nice.
idea. What's a good hashtag for the two of us getting
Yeah.
married? Gina Mizzoni, David Rosen. We call each other bears. You can use that maybe.
Yeah, we thought about buried, but then
Yeah.
that could be kind of creepy.
Yeah, it might even take the wrong turn of tone. But yeah, no, I'm very excited about our wedding next year. And of course, working on more projects, growing the podcast, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and we're actually getting married up in Mount Charleston, which is
It's
really
going to be beautiful.
awesome.
Yep.
We went hiking up there quite a bit.
Yep. Oh yeah, that's another thing we've been busy with over
Yeah.
this past decade. We've gone on hikes, we've gone on adventures, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, what other adventures have we been on?
Jeez. Well, Q from Bird Road, we went to his wedding in Puerto Rico. That was towards the beginning of the decade.
That
and
was amazing.
that was probably the best trip, I think. It was just I loved Puerto Rico so much, and I was of course Q's best man, and that was a lot of fun. That was a great trip. We also went to my friend TJ's wedding where I was also best man. That was in New York, but during that trip we got to go and visit the town where I grew up, Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. You got to see it for the first time. That was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, Stroudsburg is very different than Las Vegas.
It couldn't be more different. It is so different. Of course, my mom wanted us to move here. She was sick of it. And it's funny how I always looked back at it like it was just this like little, I don't know, just kind of hick town or whatever. But I actually really liked it when we went back.
You were 3 when you moved to Stroudsburg, correct?
I think so. I moved from Brooklyn to Stroudsburg around
You were-
3.
You were born in Brooklyn.
Born in Brooklyn, yeah. Grew up in Stroudsburg, and then when I was 17, we all moved here, moved Wax Tracks, moved the whole thing here to Las Vegas.
What was it like going to movies in Stroudsburg?
Oh, that's like the old school style movie theater. It was awesome. I love that kind of movie theater. I mean, even now, we don't really have them here in Vegas except for the Dollar Theater. Shout out to Tropicana Cinemas. But yeah, I mean, it's like this, like the old seats, which aren't necessarily comfortable, and that popcorn that's like a little extra crunchy, but it's awesome. And they always have Diet Coke. They don't have Diet Pepsi. Only shitty new theaters have Pepsi products.
Oh yeah, Diet Coke is your thing.
Yes, absolutely. And still some theaters have Diet Coke, but not all of them. Some of them have moved on to Pepsi, which is disgusting. But yeah, no, going to the movies back then was awesome.
Yeah. Speaking of Diet Coke and popcorn, you actually you're celebrating your 100th episode, and you just lost how many pounds?
100 pounds. That's right.
That is freaking amazing.
Yeah, it's been an interesting year. Yeah, I mean, framing it within the decade, I just kept gaining and gaining and gaining
I'm
weight.
sorry.
It's not your fault.
Well,
it's my fault.
I'm a vegetarian, and I love to cook a lot, and I been kind of naughty with the kinds of things that I make, and I
Not at all.
basically made Dave overweight.
No, you didn't. Every single thing that I ate was me eating it, and every single time I could have gone to the gym and didn't go to the gym was me not going to the gym. So I, over the past year, have lost. I had lost 99 pounds on day 365. Is that how many days are in a
it
year?
was on the one when you marked your 1 year on the diet.
And and now I've been popping back and forth 199, but that's how dieting goes. But
and we shouldn't just say dieting, because you actually changed your whole lifestyle.
Yeah, I go to the gym almost every day, and I do love it. And now I'd say movies and the gym are the things that I do.
I think that's probably about it, right? I mean, is there anything else that you want to talk about?
I think that is kind of it. Let me see. I had written down a few notes ahead of time. Let me see if I forgot about anything. They wrote an awesome article about me in the Las Vegas Weekly. That was fun, that you did photos for.
Oh, that was freaking cool. See, you got a whole page in the LV Weekly.
Oh yeah, that was very, very cool. But yeah, no, I don't know. I think that's about it. I think I'd kind of mentioned this earlier. I think back to 2000 to 2009, that decade, as kind of being like the fun decade. It was my 20s, and I met you, and it was like all the comedy stuff that I used to do and all that. But 2010 to 2019, I was making my notes for putting this thing together, as well as also we have some special episodes planned for like best movies of the decade and best this and best that. And so I was just making all these notes of things and just looking back and realizing how much stuff I made over this past decade.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just really, I'm very much proud of it all. And I also just am so thankful for all the people I've collaborated with over this decade. And that includes you too, Little Bear, because you do all the photos for my my stuff, album covers and all that stuff, and an incredible job along the way.
Thanks. And I think it's, let's not forget, this is your 100th episode. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yes, I'm very excited about that too. I mean, this podcast, I really, really enjoy doing it. And, moving forward with this thing, I mean, obviously there's Awesome Movie Year, there's All Rice No Beans, there's whatever I continue to do with Q, whether it's Bird Road or not. And don't forget Q's
wife's podcast.
Shout out to Entree Dos.
You're not really involved with producing that one, but it's another one that's really awesome.
Shout out to Entree Dos and Breaking Through, both here on the All Points West network. But yeah, no, piecing it together though, it takes probably the bulk of my time nowadays. I mean, I definitely have another album on the way, plus the Pups. But all that stuff is right now, piecing it together is kind of my main thing, and I really enjoy doing it, and I'm so happy that people are out there enjoying it. And I've got a lot of stuff planned. I'm not gonna go too into detail right now, but I do want to do more special episodes, as well as, of course, plenty more of the main ones. But we're going to do special episodes like lists and looking back at things, older things. And I'm going to try to watch more movies at home and cover some of those. And we all know I don't watch very many movies at home, but I'm going to try. And I want to thank people who are out there listening.
All right. Well, that's awesome. I'm very, very proud of you.
And I want to thank you, Bearhead, for interviewing me today. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you for the opportunity. Maybe I will make an appearance on your show again.
I was just going to say that. You are going to have to do that sometime.
Actually, let me just say something really quick here. What do I enjoy watching? And this is a little embarrassing, but you know what? I will own it. I will fucking own it.
Own the hell out of it. You like Lifetime movies.
Yes, I do.
Yes. You also like psychological thrillers and the occasional indie.
I do like, and some mumblecore.
Mumblecore.
I do like genuine good movies.
And shitty horror movies that you drag me to.
Yeah. But some of them are really shitty that I can't even really watch them.
Yeah,
they're like beyond that.
I think I like the Lifetime ones more than the shitty horror ones.
Yeah. I like Lifetime horror movies.
Oh, boy.
Those are good.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe we'll do a special Lifetime movie episode soon.
I'm down. We're going to do it. But we'll do a real movie too, so... No,
Well,
no offense to those
or-
filmmakers. I
or
mean,
we'll-
movie, theatrically released
Oh
movie.
yeah, or we'll piece together a Lifetime movie that will have been inspired by, or we'll think it's been inspired by real quote unquote movies.
Absolutely, we'll do it.
All right.
It sounds like fun. Well,
Well,
thanks, Bear.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for listening.
All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was a little bit different from the usual thing, but I want to thank my bear, Gina Mizzoni, my fiance, for doing that. I think we had a really fun little conversation there, and I am definitely going to get her back on the show sometime. So I want to remind you all, as always, to make sure you are subscribed to Piecing It Together on your podcast app of choice. If you enjoy Piecing It Together, you can rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. You can follow us on social media at Piecing Pod. Join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces, and of course, join our Patreon, where we are starting to load up some more special bonus content. I mentioned that we bumped this for Motherless Brooklyn, Terminator Dark Fate, and Jojo Rabbit. Those are all going up on the Patreon until I can find a good time to put them on as real episodes. But there's going to be all kinds of bonus content, not just delayed episodes, but actual new special episodes that don't fit the mold of a regular Piecing It Together, that I don't want to put on the main feed, that are going to go on there. And it's going to be just a whole bunch of exciting new fun content for you guys to check out. So lots to look forward to in the next decade of Piecing It Together. So you know what? Let's close this thing out with a piece of music, as we always do. All right, I think a good pick to close this thing out would be a track that's probably my favorite track from any of my albums from this decade. It's from my most recent album, A Different Kind of Dream, and it is the song Searching Further. This is a track that, to me, musically, I just think is so damn cool, and I love this thing. And it's not like a single, it's not something I ever put a video out for. It's just I guess you might call it a deep cut, but I love it, and hope you enjoy it too. We will be back with more Piecing It Together coming up next week. I'll be back with another album next year. And one more plug for Gina. Check out GinaMizzoni.com for her holiday specials. Book some photo shoots if you're here in Las Vegas, or if you're visiting or something. I will put, of course, links in the show notes, so that way you can go check all that out. But GinaMizzoni.com, Piecing It Together next week, new album next year. We got a lot coming up for you guys. Thanks for listening, as always.
and all points west.